Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen.
The question is, what made you get involved with music, and do you have any regrets? So what made me get involved with music? I'm not really sure, but I remember one of my earliest memories that I have is playing records on my own little record player. According to my mom and dad, I was very attracted to my dad's hi-fi system, and so that I wouldn't ruin his expensive one, they got me when I was only a year and a half old, a record player. And I got some records, and my uncle who had managed my now deceased uncle who managed a restaurant with a that had a jukebox, started giving me his jukebox rejects, or the ones that they would normally throw away. So I got a good collection of
the Jukebox Rejects would be a good band name if you're watching this and you're looking for.
They're like this, and I love them, and that was the thing I love to do is play. Did you see it? It's a record.
Yeah, it's got the big hole in it, not the.
Yeah, they all had the big holes. So I played those incessantly. To me, they were like little rides I could take, in like rides for your mind, the music, and whatever. I would actually, I remember doing this as a kid too. I would pretend that I was a record player and spin the records on my belly and make up music. I was the stylus and my finger, and I would like make up music in my head. So I always thought that it was just ingrained in me very early. When I became 6 years old, my parents made me take piano lessons. I don't think I asked for them. They just had me go to this place. My dad took me to piano lessons, so I was banging on the piano. I learned how to play it a little better. I guess it was part of nurture and the fact that my dad played records and music, and there's something that attracted me to it somehow, because that's what I wanted to do, is become a songwriter.
What kind of music was your dad playing?
He played classical, mostly just classical. My mom was into show tunes, and so we also had 78s that were show tunes, and my mom also had 45s, but she also had some, believe it or not, 78 records from her collection that I ruined. So that's the stuff I listen to, is either show tunes or classical music.
You remember the first record you bought? What that was? It was a 45 or an album?
The first record that I got to pick and choose to buy?
Yeah, by yourself, yeah.
Was a Partridge Family record.
Yes!
I Think I Love You.
Yes, exactly. What am I so afraid of?
I used to love that show.
So I wanted to be a songwriter. I actually wrote songs, and at first on the paper, and then with a tape recorder, I wrote songs. Do I have any regrets? Not really. I have regrets about some things that I put out into the wild that I probably should have never done, song-wise. But as far as being in music, although I never really consider myself a musician, I never felt that I had an innate talent. I think it was just because I just liked music so much, I wanted to make my own little musical rides for people in song format.
Do you know who else doesn't think you have an innate talent? The Germans.
I was just about to say that.
No.
All back.
But if you work at anything long enough, you just get better at it as you go along. I'm still working on the guitar, and I feel that I'm better than I was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's my story.
That was awesome. That was good.
So me, I also got started on piano pretty early, I guess around 7. And my mom taught piano in the house, but she didn't want to teach me because she didn't think I would take it seriously if she was my teacher, which I may not have. And I did kind of take it seriously, but I realized kind of early on that I had trouble understanding music theory, the the written stuff and the notated stuff, but my ear was really good. So I remember like 6 months or so into my lessons, I'm like playing, and my teacher is kind of doing this, like looking at me, like, and I can feel her looking at me, and I'm like, what? And she's like, are you gonna turn the page? I was like, oh yeah. So, 'cause I couldn't read it, and I just had this block. And was like, I'll never understand music theory, so I'm just gonna rely on my ear. And honestly, I listened to whatever my dad was listening to when I was a kid, and it was usually 60s. Like he liked Motown and doo-wop music, and so I would get like movie soundtracks or like classical music because I was learning that on piano. Up until I started discovering rock music, I guess, like punk rock music, and I was like, I'm gonna quit piano. I also played trumpet and violin at the same time. Not at the same time, but
Yeah, that would be a feat.
yeah.
Well,
So I quit all three of those things to teach myself how to play guitar, which I ended up teaching myself how to play bass by listening to Dead Milkmen records. But and abandoned music theory and classical music and all that stuff. And that ties in with what I would maybe say is my regret. Because I had this attitude that like, oh, I already understand that music. Let me like figure out this and start writing my own, make my own kind of music. And now I wish I could read music. Now I wish I had both those skills, being able to understand it with my ear and eyes. And my mom warned me, she's like, you're going to regret it, because I quit it too soon and I regretted it. But then she became a piano teacher, so I don't, it's not. So yeah, that's my story.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. So my story is that this would be pre-kindergarten. My father was a teacher at the high school, and we would go to parades like up in Quakertown and watch the bands march by. And I was always fascinated by the drum lines as they wandered by. Just the precision and the parts that they were playing. I always thought that was really cool. So that was pre-kindergarten. And when I got into kindergarten, I remember there was one like spring concert or whatever. I'm sure kindergarten spring concerts are torture for most parents. But there was a song, I have no idea what the song was, but we had these weird little they came in like a case, and they had like a block which was like a resonator, and they had a bar on the top, and they of course were each note, but you could pull out the different blocks and make up your own set of notes. And we did some song, and for whatever reason I kind of latched on and took to it really well, and they gave me like the hardest part to play in the song or whatever. I had to play the notes in a certain order, and I think from that moment on, I was kind of hooked. Fast forward or whatever, and I think that my uncle got into drums. He would try different things. He got into fads, and he bought himself a drum kit at one point. And after a while, he got bored with it. And for whatever reason, he passed on like a snare drum and one of the tom-toms and like a really rickety hi-hat stand. There's a photo of it out there, which you're probably going to see on the screen right there. When this video comes out. So that was probably when I was like 8 or 9, maybe. And then I lived in England for a year. I really didn't do like music, like privately. I didn't take guitar lessons or piano or anything. When I came back to the States, I went to 6th grade is when I started playing drums. And pretty much for that whole year of the 6th grade, it was just this boring little practice pad learning my rudiments. But for whatever reason, that satisfied my need for playing drums, and I stuck with it. And I was in, band and orchestra throughout middle school and high school. You know, I was in the marching band and all that stuff. And then in my senior year in high school, I did take music theory. And that's one of my regrets is that I don't remember any of that stuff, because I did enjoy the class. I had a great music theory class teacher. And, you know, I do wish that I still remembered all that information and knowledge. But on my senior year, I was trying to decide whether I was going to go to art school or music school, and I contemplated going to music school. I considered applying to Berkeley up in Boston. And then I kind of realized late in the years, like, well, I want to be in a rock band. I want to play punk rock music. I don't want to like play in a wedding band after I graduate from Berkeley or whatever. So I went to art school. I you know, went to school in Philadelphia and met all kinds of interesting people, including you guys, in 1983. And, you know, it just kind of took off from there. So I think the only regret I have is really not retaining any of that music theory practice and knowledge that I got early on. I would love to know how to, you know, read music. And but like Joe said, as we go on, you know, 30 years on, we all sort of have some kind of innate knowledge of the way things work. So it's not
and it's
bad.
not too late to learn to read music.
Yeah,
now
that's
they have
true.
computer programs.
I could read, you know, drum music and rhythm music, but note music always seemed to baffle me a little bit. So anyway, that's my story.
It's weird that you guys all have an ear but don't know the theory. I don't have an ear. I'm pretty much tone deaf, but I know if I had to, I've done it before. If I had to explain like a C harmonic minor to somebody, you know, I can explain, okay, you know, C, D, jump up to the E flat, it goes to the F, you go to the G, you go up to the A flat, and it's like I know that stuff. But in order to do what I do, to write songs, I've had to memorize all that stuff and learn all that stuff because I don't have an ear. To me, yeah, it's not, and kind of sometimes it works out. Sometimes I'll play a minor chord over like a major chord progression somewhere. I know what I'm doing, but it's something you wouldn't do or you might not do, but it's just odd. It'll make a perfect sort of noise clash or whatever, but that's just really weird that I have the opposite thing where I had to teach myself all that. So, all right, so I can pinpoint, unlike most people, I can pinpoint the exact moment when I wanted to become a musician. I was sitting on the sofa, it was summertime, I was about 10 years old, and my mom and dad and my sisters and I were watching a film called Wild in the Streets from 1968. It is, and it's free, and we will put the link up. And you can watch it for free on YouTube. If you've never seen it, you've got to see this movie. As Dan, you were talking about playing the bass and the trumpet and the violin at the same time. The bass player in this band is played by Joey Bishop's son in the band in the movie. He has a hook hand, and he plays the bass and the trumpet. And the drummer is played by Richard Pryor, Stanley X. But I'm getting away from it. The film is about a rock star that it was made in 1968 when the voting age was 21. It's about a rock star who lowers the voting age to 15, and then they make senators be allowed to be 14 by putting LSD. Just watch the movie. Remember, I'm watching this with my parents, and my parents are screaming with laughter. And they're like, my parents turned me on to a lot of great films. My family, there was a channel that showed the producers 3 times a day for 2 weeks, and my family watched it every day. And when I was like 9 or 10, I memorized that film. But my parents were like, you got to see this film. It's amazing. It's basically he takes everybody over 30 after he becomes president, the rock star does, zonks them out on LSD and puts them in concentration camps. So it's an allegory. It's an allegory for the Holocaust. It's a very heavy film, but you're 10 years old and your parents are explaining it's an allegory. That's not the part to focus on. That's not the part that made me want to be a musician. The thing is, when he's a little kid, and him as a little kid is played by Greg Brady, which makes it even better. He has this like rough life, and he runs away from home, and he changes his name. It's Max Plato. And when I was older and read Plato's Republic, I realized why they chose that name. There's a whole thing in Plato's Republic about controlling the music of the youth. But fascinating. But what happens is he runs away from home, he changes his name, and he becomes this rock star named Max Frost. So you see him leave home, and then they flash forward a couple years later, and he's living in Beverly Hills in this big house, and he's got all these cool people, like say like Richard Pryor, the bass player. He's got the most inclusive band on the planet. His guitar player is gay. There's a woman in the band. It's just really cool. But it's just like, it looked like this cool artistic lifestyle. Remember, I'm 10 years old, so I'm focusing on this part of the film. And at one point, he's sitting there, he's reading the newspaper, and he sees that 52% of the country is under 25. And he writes this song called 52%. And at that point, it was like the clouds parted. I was like, you can read a newspaper and write a song. You can write, I remember I told my parents, like, because you didn't see that. Like if you were a kid and you turned on TV on like Saturday or whatever, and there's a rock and roll movie on, it was like Help, or, you know, something like that. And in Help, they never, I would like the Beatles more if I would have seen John Lennon played by young Greg Brady get slapped by Shelley Winters and then run away. And there's no backstory in any of those. And I just remember why, and I was fascinated by this thing. The songs were catchy. They weren't like psychedelic or pop. They were garage rock. There's a song called The Shape of Things to Come. That's still one of my favorite songs. There's a song called 14 or Fight that you will sing along with. And there's a song called Sally Leroy, because there's a girl who turns 25 so they can get her into Congress. So they say, Sally Leroy, she's old enough for Congress, boy. At which point my parents had to explain a double entendre to me, but I like it. I always pinpointed there because it opened up this whole world of writing. I'm like, you can write this weird, crazy stuff. And I mean, yes, it's the latter part of the film is why you should never let people in the entertainment industry become president. You shouldn't do that. But the earlier part of the film, Max is a really cool guy, and he has this really neat lifestyle. And for a guy growing up in a steel town, I saw that as an out. And I began, seriously, from that point on, I think my mom or my dad said, son, you might consider this as a career choice. But yeah, I began to kind of think about, you know, particularly lyrics and stuff like that. So that movie, and we will provide a link, was my gateway to being a musician. Other people say, you know, well, I heard Rachmaninoff at the age of 2. I didn't. It was Wild in the Streets because the guy had a bunch of cool friends and a cool life. So yeah, I admit freely to that. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Do I have any regrets? None whatsoever, because I'm still relevant and still having a good time. I've got a remix on the new God Module album. Caustic contacted me today. I just did a thing live with the Gothsicles for Terminus Festival. Always wanted to play Terminus Festival. Got to do it through the computer. It was a lot of fun. You know, the other day I still get excited. I got really hyped about getting 4 new reverbs for my MTS-1. It was like, Chris, oh, it's free. It's, you know, and so yeah, I'm still enjoying myself. I'm still finding new ways to make music. To me, yeah, I'm in a pretty good place. I have literally no regrets because I got to the happy point. Do I have Stanley X as my drummer and a bass player with a hook hand? No.
Not yet.
But you know, I mean, I think what I have, I live in a row home in Philadelphia. I've had the same life for 25 years. I'm happy. I'm good. Technically, though, once I did point to Joe on stage because I was doing the speech from it, and I was like, my guitar player who does my taxes, and I'm rich, babies, is only 15. And he just looked at me like, what are you doing? You know, mystery solved, Joe. So yeah, I might do a whole video someday just on this movie. It's that good. But it really did. It changed my life.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I've seen it. Wild in the Streets, and the Circle Jerks cover the Wild in the Streets.
No, they didn't. There's no no. It's not in the. That's not a song in the movie.
Oh, that's not in the movie. Okay.
No, it's a different song. No, the song in the movie is the big one was "Shape of Things to Come." Wild, they just took the title.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. Are we on recommendations?
Yes, we are, Mr. Flipper.
I would like to recommend The Sound of Music by Laibach, and it's their version of the musical soundtrack of The Sound of Music. It came out a couple years ago.
You didn't play on it though?
Huh?
You didn't play on it?
No. I'm not in that band. It has, in addition to the Sound of Music soundtrack, it also has 2 Korean traditional folk songs on it. And the reason, I think the reason that they made the sound, like they've covered other things before. They've covered Jesus Christ Superstar. They've covered Let It Be by the Beatles and made it better than the actual Beatles Let It Be, which is hard to do. And they actually made this better, in my opinion, than The Sound of Music, which is something I've seen that many times on TV. They toured. They were the first Western band to officially play North Korea. You probably know that, like 5 years ago or something. But the Korean music censors, everything has to go through the Korean music censors to be approved before they'll let you do anything there. And they apparently only like happy, upbeat music, so they decided to. And not only that, but the movie, The Sound of Music, is one of the very few American films that's allowed to be played in North Korea, and it's very, very popular.
That's bizarre.
So, and according to Leibach, they've been wanting to do The Sound of Music anyway. I don't know how true that is, but they've been wanting to do it anyway, so they use this as an excuse to do it. And they got another singer to join them, so there's sort of like two lead singers. So you have a pretty voice mixed in with the normal lead singer's voice. And it's a good album. I recommend it. Just because it's Leibach. Not just because it's Leibach, but because it's worth hearing. And they changed the words to Maria to be about Korea. That makes it worth it.
How do you solve a problem like Korea?
Exactly.
Yes.
So they have a sense of humor.
Oh, yes, they do.
Honestly, I didn't really think about any recommendations this week, but I will tell you something that just popped into my head. Well, one, if you're learning music theory, don't stop learning it. Or if you want to relearn it, go for it. If you think you only need to rely on your ear for music, that's not necessarily true. But also, I've been painting at work. I have to paint ceilings. And I've been listening to the Rolling Stones Between the Buttons album a lot. And it's an album that I always just was kind of like, yeah, that one's all right. But for some reason, I just had it on and I keep playing it. And if you like the Rolling Stones and you haven't listened to that album in a while, play it again. It's good.
Sounds
That's
good.
all. Yeah. Also, keep drinking water
Or tea.
Okay,
with no label.
you're good. So I'm going to recommend Moleskine Sketchbooks. Moleskine. They make a lot of different note-taking books. Some have graph paper, some have regular paper. They have like reporters' notebooks. I like the sketchbook because it's like a thick, durable paper. It takes pen and pencil, and you can even probably do a little bit of watercolor on it without too much trouble. But I've been keeping one of these for probably 10 years now. I go through one or two a year. It's kind of like my notebook / idea book. Like, I just have weird pages like this. I make collages. What else do I have in here? Some drawings. I kind of have it always at hand, and I can just reach for it when I want to make a piece of art or something. It's very durable. Some of you may have noticed I've been on Instagram. I've been doing the Mandala postcard project. It initially started with some sketches I did in this notebook here. So I recommend these notebooks. They're very durable. They're easy to come by. You can find them online or in your local store. They have a nice hard cover and a little strap that keeps them closed. And yours probably will not have stickers of your cats on the front, but there's my cat, Reggie, and Tam.
Yeah, I was going to recommend at one point. I mean to your Instagram Mendel project. So yeah, I really like that.
Thank you.
I've got these. So, before my recommendations, thank you, TikTok teens and K-pop stans. You did good. I, I like to lift this with two hands because okay, recommendations. First is a band from Philadelphia. If you're up in New York and you saw they were on the bill with us and with Sage Francis, the band is called Gibbous Moon.
Oh yeah,
very, very loud. They'll blow the doors off a tank 30 feet in the air. They are amazing. They've been up to some new stuff. I really, really love them. So we'll have links out to where you can get their stuff. Then I also want to recommend this. Because I don't have an ear, I have to get machines to do a lot of work for me. This is a thing here called MIDI Solutions Quadra Thru. Oftentimes I'll be talking to other musicians and they'll say, well, it's only got one MIDI out and I wanna drive 4 synthesizers with it. I can't do that. I'm like, no, you can, okay? It goes in here, and this is old school 5-pin DIN MIDI. You can get the other kind of dangly, you can get, grab one of these here. You can get these things here. These things, but that's not real. You're gonna put it in one of those things of the quad. I've got another one over there. I should have ripped the place apart earlier, and it's going to fall apart when you're on stage. Don't do that. Get one of these, okay, and color code it too for all your stuff that you have. So there you go. So if you don't have an ear, yeah, you can study up and you can get machines to do the work for you, which is kind of what I do. So is there anything else I needed to recommend? No, that's just it. Gibbous Moon and the MIDI Quadra Thru.
Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome.
Awesome.
Where is everybody? Hello?
Hello.
Joe, I'm not getting the option to join by video.
Oh, I don't know